Hey everybody, KCC's here from Lucid Books. I'm here today with Dr. Mark McGraw. He's given me permission to call him Mark. And so, Mark, it's so great to have you join us here today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Casey.
Hey, why don't you just take a minute and tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Um, I come from Alexandria, Louisiana. I went to college at Texas A&M. I went in the Marine Corps right after that. Spent 20 years in the Marine Corps. Retired in 2005, and went back to graduate school after working in a couple other things, and finished graduate school in 2013. And I've been teaching Spanish ever since.
Awesome. And so you're now located in Waco, Texas at Baylor University. Is that correct?
Texas, I teach at Baylor.
What's it like being an Aggie at Baylor?
Well, it's great. They don't give me a hard time. I don't know if they know all my background, but they have a great school spirit, and I just enjoy seeing them love their school the way I do mine. I'm convinced that the best university in the world is wherever you went to undergrad.
That's it.
For you, there's no better school in the world, and I enjoy seeing the Baylor students and Baylor grads love and enjoy their school the way I do mine.
That's awesome. Well, I want to also thank you for your service in the Marine Corps. That's a huge blessing to our nation, and really grateful for that. So, you've written a book. Tell us a little bit about your book.
The book is entitled Behind Friendly Lines. It's a memoir of the 2 years I spent with my family living and working in Viña del Mar, Chile. That experience was a huge turning point in my life, and I probably thought about it every day from when I left in 2002 until I started writing the book. And it's just kind of a summary of our 2 years there, with lessons learned at the end, and some of my previous experience in the Marine Corps kind of melded into that, since that was kind of a platform for that 2 year experience in Chile.
Yeah. So, what were some primary themes or lessons that you learned there?
Uh, Chile was hugely social. There were always dinners to go to, always events that you were expected to attend. I can't imagine being an introvert in Chile, because it would be just excruciating. You just had to be social. You had to depend on others for help. As a foreigner there, without my family there, without a lot of close friends from years and years back there, without that network, I had to count on the help of Chilean friends, and I was very intensely aware of my own vulnerability and need in that environment.
Now, were you still in the Marine Corps at that time?
I was in the Marine Corps. I was a major. I got promoted to lieutenant colonel during my second year there. I was part of an exchange program. It's called a personnel exchange program that swaps one for one. One Chilean Marine goes to Camp Pendleton to 5th Marines and works with them, and I was the U.S. Marine part of that goes and works with their largest operational Marine unit in Chile. So I was to be employed as just another Chilean guy. There were a few restrictions, but I was one of the higher ranking officers in the unit, and I was the operations officer, the training officer, and the fire support coordinator. So I had 3 jobs with this unit, and that it was an official Marine Corps job. I was just a Marine Corps, U.S. Marine Corps of one down there with a Chilean unit.
So, it's one thing to have a memorable experience. It's another thing to have such an experience that compels you to write a book. So, what about that experience compelled you to write that book?
I just I thought about it so much, and it formed so much of my current experience, even years and years after that. That I thought it was worth writing about. I translated the memoir of a good friend of mine from Spanish to English, and I thought, this is a good story, but my Chile experience is a great story, so that's worth writing down. I also, about 6 years ago, just got the bug to learn more about my grandfather, Harvey McGraw, who had served in World War II as a chaplain in the Army, and then was a minister of music after that for the rest of his career in Texas and Louisiana. And I realized that I knew nothing from his mouth or nothing that he had written about World War II. I got access to his medical records and military records through a formal request process, and I kind of pieced together his story based on those records. But I thought over and over again what I would give to have his story from him, written by him. And I thought, if I don't write this, once I'm gone, this story's gone forever. And it's a unique story. It's one U.S. Marine in a 900-man Chilean unit with his family that initially didn't speak Spanish, and how we made it, and how we were able to be blessed by that experience, to grow through it, and come out the other end of it kind of different people in a lot of ways.
So wait a minute, you didn't speak Spanish when you went there?
I did.
Okay.
My wife and kids didn't.
Okay. I was like, holy man. Wow.
I spoke pretty well.
Yeah.
I had worked in Peru. I'd been through school and classes and training. I'd gone through immersion training in Guatemala. I'd sat through classes at Texas A&M as a non-degree seeking student when I worked there right before I went to Chile. So I thought I was pretty solid. I made good scores on the test, but then I ran into Chilean Spanish, which is unique and famously difficult. So I had to kind of learn all over again, and that was a sometimes difficult but ultimately fun process.
Wow. So someone picks up your book to read it. What are you hoping they experience along the way?
I hope that they learn a little bit more about some aspects of the military they may not have known about. Most people have no idea there are 2 or 3 U.S. Marines in Chile or other parts of the world working as part of an exchange program that in many ways has as much or more diplomatic value than conventional military value. I hope that people read the book and they understand what military families work through, some of the challenges and blessings of being a military family. I hope that people learn about the process of language learning, which is something very dear to me. I'm a language professor now. I teach Spanish, every day to people who are working on learning it. And so I hope that people pick up those aspects. I hope they also get a little bit of appreciation for what it's like to be the other. Because if you're like me, living in the United States, you don't get the feeling that everything is kind of made for you to be comfortable and to be successful until you go somewhere where you're not the primary citizen, where things are not made for you and you are an outsider. I think it's healthy to have that experience, because then you start to develop empathy for the outsider among your midst when you come home.
No, that's huge. That's hugely important. So, tell me about this. What feedback have you received so far? Your book's been out for a little while now. What kind of feedback have you been receiving?
Few people that know me and have started reading it, they tell me, man, it's like I can hear your voice when I'm reading it. Your word choice, it's almost like you are in my head telling me these stories. And I love that. I hoped that it would seem just like storytelling. I don't try to write it in a very flowery, complex way, but instead I just try to tell the story and let the events themselves and the people I've met and the people I talk about be the remarkable thing about the book, and to have it be very much storytelling, just written storytelling.
Awesome. So what advice would you give to a first-time author?
I would tell a first-time author to write primarily for yourself, to write something that you're intensely interested in or affected by in order to more fully digest that experience. You will, as you go through the process of writing, you will re-experience that in a way that you didn't understand the first time. So it's do it for yourself initially, and try to write it as best you can so that it moves you, and it makes you laugh, and it makes you cry. And if it does that for you, it probably will appeal to the humanity of some readers out there and be worth publishing. But if it's not, if it turns out it's not a good fit to publish, at least it's something you did for yourself to better come to grips with that experience, and maybe it can hang around in some form for your children, your grandchildren, to stay as part of your family history.
That's good advice. So, what have you loved about working with Lucid Books? We like to ask some of our authors that if we know they're going to say nice things. So,
Listen, I was really I was impressed through a lot of phases of the whole process. What really blew me away was when we came down to design the cover. I had a long conversation with one of the representatives from Lucid, and she talked me through what I wanted the cover to look like. And I mean, I'm really interested in art, but I'm not an art guy. I think there's a lot of language in that can be presented visually, but I don't really have any background in it as an artist or anything like that. But the questions that I was asked and how I was walked through that process, what do you want the reader to, how do you want the reader to approach your book through the cover? You know, what are so, you know, it was really, really well done. And all three covers, they presented me with three possibilities, three options for covers. All three of them were good. Any one of the three would have worked. I picked the one that I felt, you know, worked the best, but all three of them were remarkably good. So good that it made the choice kind of tough, you know, and I hated to lose. I felt like I need to go write two more books now, you know, because the other two covers were so good. But that process was remarkable, and the products were really good, and I'm really happy with how the cover came out. My wife made a poster of it, and the cover's right over my shoulder there. But I love the way the cover looks and the way it came out.
Yeah, the book turned out great. You did a lot of great work on that. Last question I have though is, what has been the response been for the people in Chile?
They are intensely interested in the book, and you would think, well, wait a second, the book is in English, but you know, a lot of people speak or at least read English in Chile, and my friends from Chile, which there's still, you know, there's still a ton of them I'm on Facebook with, and I correspond with. You can imagine somebody from another planet, you know, comes and works with you intensely for 2 years, and then 17 years later they write a book about it. And you know you're in it. You're interested in that book.
Absolutely.
They have been interested since I told them it was coming out. They've been very interested in it, and they're still interested, and I'm getting good feedback from them. When my best friends in Chile got it in the mail, they sent me messages on WhatsApp, and they even sent me pictures. Our friend Cookie Fierro, her husband took a picture of her walking through the mall. She's walking through a mall in Santiago, reading the book and walking. You know, couldn't wait to sit down, couldn't wait to get home, wanted to start reading right then. And they're very interested in the book, and getting good response back from them. And it's, you know, it's a little bit of a anxiety producing event, you know, because you don't know if they're going to like everything you say,
right,
or if they, you know, really agree with your perspective, because a memoir is your story, your perspective. I think anyone in Chile who reads that book is going to, and they read the whole book, they're going to feel like they'll be proud of their country. They'll be proud of who they are as Chileans. But probably just about any Chilean will read through part of it and say, oh, you know, I don't like the way he viewed that, or the way I don't agree with the way he talked about that. So it's a little bit of anxiety producing process.
And I found that's true with any sort of memoir, regardless of, you know, cultural difference or whatever. I mean, it is your perspective and your experience, but a very interesting one. A United States Marine who goes to a different country, is involved in their military, and immersed in a culture that's much different than your own. And so grateful that you would share that. And I know it would have cross implications and applications for many of us. And so I appreciate you sharing that. So how can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you online?
I'm on Facebook under my name. I'm on Twitter. You can probably find me by my name. My Twitter handle is Ay Pero Que Vaina. Hard to just look for my name. You should be able to find it.
Gotcha.
And also on Instagram.
Awesome. And your books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and will be
right.
coming on Target pretty soon. So a lot of places to check that out as well.
Yep.
Well, Mark, thanks so much for taking the time to visit with myself and with all the people watching. And look forward to the next projects you have coming our way.
Thank you, Casey.